Let me know when you're ready. Just say yes.
Welcome to the Apartment Rockstar podcast. Join the Apartment Rockstar, Robert Martinez, a real estate industry icon and a two-time National Independent Renter Owner of the Year, as he interviews the best in multifamily apartment investing and management. Follow his journey to 10,000 units and beyond.
Hey, everybody. So welcome to our third episode of the relaunch of our podcast, the Apartment Rockstar. You know what? Every podcast, I got to bring it. I got to bring you value. I got to bring on guests that provide you value. And I have both of those boxes checked for today. Today, I've got Brad Blazar. Brad, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, Robert. It's great to be here with you. I've been to your office before. You're doing great things, and just a real honor to be a guest here today.
So Brad is definitely building quite the audience as a capital raiser, obviously dynamic speaker. He's being asked to speak at multiple events and successful entrepreneur. And his background is that he was a former CEO of was it an independent oil company, Brad?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it absolutely was.
And so I'm sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, no, we built that company up over the course of a little over a decade. But yeah, an oil company CEO.
And what he's known as a capital raiser, he's raised over $2 billion to fund different business activities and scaling his business. And you have your own program, Brad. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a whole platform where we do anything and everything related to raising capital. Like we launch funds, so we're very competitive in the fund launch space. We obviously have another platform called Capital Stack, which is an all-in-one CRM solution for people that need a CRM, for emailing and nurturing leads and stuff like that. We do boot camps throughout the year. Our next boot camp's coming up in Toronto in July, and then we got another big one coming up in August in Nashville. But that is a big thrust of what I do. But the other side is I got a real estate firm much like you called 5-Star Capital. And so, we're out there looking at deals. We're investing alongside other people. We're actively chasing. And so I live and breathe capital raising still to this day. Because I love the kill, I love the hunt. That's really what raising capital is all about, right? We're chasing investor capital, which is the potential investor. But it's really blessed me in so many ways, much like yourself, because, in the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says, the key to building legacy wealth is not to do it by yourself. It's to understand the principle of OPM, other people's money.
That's exactly right. And I'm glad you referenced books. So you've done something that many people have not done, me included, is that you've written a few books. Tell us about each of the 3 books there. Well, first of all, what are they about? Why should somebody pick up that book?
So it's funny. I'll tell you, Robert, doing what I do today, being on some of the biggest stages around the world, with people like John Maxwell and, Jordan Belfort, Elena Cardone. If you had told me that I'd be doing those things 4 years ago, I would have laughed at you. But here's the funny thing. Back about 30 years ago, after I collapsed my oil business, I started the process of writing a book to kind of chronicle the success. I mean, there's not many 23-year-old kids that launch and build multi-million-dollar oil companies, but that's what I did. And so I started writing this book, and I never finished it. And so about 4.5 years ago, as I was cleaning up my office, I ran across this floppy disk, right? That ages myself a little bit because we don't use floppies anymore, but it was that book. And I was like, holy crap. Now I've got a daughter, and I'm trying to teach my daughter that when we start something, we always follow it to its logical conclusion. And I did not do that. So I had to find, how do I get the information off of this damn floppy disk so I can finish this book? And so I went down to Best Buy and went into the geek squads there, and they're like, yeah, we can help you. So they took that information, they put it on a little flash drive, but then eventually I finished my book. And so I self-published it on Amazon, and it's called On the Wings of Eagles, Learning How to Soar in Life. And it chronicles my track record and success and journey as an entrepreneur. But also it shares the successes and stories of a lot of other people that I've met or worked with, like Joe Namath, Rudy Rudiger, George W. Bush, Shaquille O'Neal. And so throughout the book, it's kind of chronicling their stories as well. But that book became the #1 book for young entrepreneurs on a major literary blog in England. And wow. So when that happened, I started sending that out to every major university here that has programs for entrepreneurship. And I started getting calls from universities where, hey, Brad, thank you so much for sending the book. The dean of the business school would like to invite you to come speak to our student body. Sure. And I'm flying all over the damn United States at my own expense, not realizing I could get paid, as a public speaker. And so University of Houston, UT, Rice, all over. Finally, then I started getting calls from radio stations. Hey, you're that dude that we heard has raised a lot of money, then TV shows. And so finally I went to my wife and I said, man, like something's happening. There's this door that's opening up. And I've always dreamt about, having an impact in the world and kind of being on big stages. And she's like, go for it. And so I kind of retired and then went back to work as what? A speaker, as a coach, and as a mentor. And the world has rewarded me. We're mentoring in 28 countries around the world. Like we got students in communities in Australia and England and Canada and Brazil and over in the UAE and the Middle East. And of course, it's open doors because now I've got this big community that I can turn to for capital, much like you've got your community. And that's what has allowed us to do some really, really exciting big things. Then the second book I wrote was called Put Some Thrive in Your Hive. And that's really for business owners and managers, how to create a culture of performance. And then the one that's on the wall behind me, Winning at the Capital Game Using OPM to Build Wealth. That book, again, a #1 bestseller. Kevin Harrington has endorsed it. His testimonials on the back cover. But that book, Winning at the Capital Game, was like teaching how to master the capital raising game. What do I do? Well, here's the blueprint, A to B.
So there you go, folks. This is the guy to help you raise more capital. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to get a little more information on Brad, but it's going to be centered around how do we raise capital, OPM. The principle that we've learned that, as Brad mentioned, Robert Kiyosaki mentions throughout all of his books, but specifically in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So Brad, since you've raised over $2 billion, what are some key strategies that you'd recommend for people trying to raise money in the capital world?
Well, let's start by focusing on one of the biggest mistakes that most people make. Because if you can avoid the biggest mistake that most people make, hopefully you won't make it, and you'll be able to move forward and have capital raising success. The biggest mistake that most people make, Robert, when they try to raise capital is they have a deal where they have an opportunity and they start talking about it too early in the process with a potential investor. Okay, so imagine, you got a deal under contract, or maybe you've got an opportunity. You meet somebody that has got some money, and you start talking about the deal a little bit too early. Well, naturally, that other person is going to follow up on that and say something like, Robert, it sounds like it could be a really interesting opportunity. Can you send me some information? And so you send them everything. You send them your pitch deck, you send them all the syndication documents, blah, blah, blah. And then you follow up, and for whatever excuse or whatever reason, they don't invest. And really what's happening is at a very subconscious level, that other person is just saying, Robert, I don't trust you enough to move forward in the process because you didn't give me enough time to really build a good relationship with you. And so the biggest advice I give to people is slow down. Like, realize it takes time to build trust. It's like dating. You got to ask questions. You got to go deep with people. Don't pitch your opportunity until maybe the third call. So allow people the time to really get to know you and your company and what you stand for. So that's the biggest mistake I always see people make, is pitching too prematurely in the capital raising process. But the other big thing that really has allowed me to raise hundreds of millions of dollars is to leverage the efforts of other people. And this is really a golden gem here. When I was in the oil business, we're raising money like most people, high net worth accredited investors, picking up the phone, scheduling meetings. This was way before Zoom, but it was grudgery. It was hard work. We'd have to call 100 people maybe to end up with 5 to 7 investors, because some did, some don't, some aren't accredited. And we aggregate all that money, and eventually we go out, we do deals. And an RIA firm called me And it was a friend of mine, and he said, hey, I've been watching you from the sidelines. Like, you got this nice sports car, you got this big fancy house. I know you're in the oil business. You got to be doing something right. Maybe what you're doing could be suitable for some of the clients whose money we manage. I'm like, right. So we met, and after going through the process that we call doing his due diligence, right? He wanted to make sure that, we knew what we were doing. He said, hey, why don't I get some of my investors together and let's co-host an event? And so that's what we did. And in 2 weeks, he sent me about $2.5 million. And it was a game changer. And I realized, like, I just got to shift my focus. It was a revelation. It was a new idea. I realized, hey, I'm fishing for minnows over here. This ocean has blue marlins. And so, I got my sales team and I said, hey, guys, we got to start calling on these RIAs. And after doing that, we finally were able to get about 4 to 6 small RIAs to come on board. And literally, we 5X the amount of money we'd raised in the prior 12 months, and going from a small firm raising 20 million to 80, now 100 million. That's huge. And that's the approach that I've taken with a lot of the roles that I've had as the head of capital markets to build companies that just in the first year go from 0 to over $100 million in capital raised through the door, because we're leveraging the one to get in front of the masses.
Brad, I'm listening to you, right? I'm listening. Okay, this guy's a fantastic speaker. He's a natural sales guy. Where did that come from? Because I kind of feel that the best capital raisers are the ones that can speak most confidently. We all know Grant Cardone, and he's buying deals 100% cash, which
Right.
means him and his team are actually putting out the story. I'm sure you watch him. He's there almost like every other weekend. He's doing like a little free event, constantly educating the masses, right? How important is salesmanship in that? Like, if you're an accountant, you're used to being in a QB, can you actually go out and capital raise, or is it more natural for the other guy that can just stand up and speak?
Well, I think it gets back to, kind of what Zig Ziglar said, right? Facts tell, stories sell.
Good. Say that again, Brad. Slow that down if everybody can listen, because I think that was gold. I think that your other 2 points are gold, but I really like that one too. Say it again.
So, Zig Ziglar, certainly one of the best speakers and one of the best coaches. Love the guy. He has a saying that is, facts tell, stories sell. I think the big problem that many people have in sales, and also, of course, in raising capital, Robert, is they talk about the facts of the deal. This is the deal. It's over here. It's going to generate a return of blah, blah, blah. Nobody's really interested in that. Yes, it's important, but tell a story of how a similar investment by a customer or a former investor did something for that person, changed their life, because stories are what's going to sell and help you become much greater at capital raising. So as an example, whenever I do my discovery, I like to ask a lot of questions, because what will happen in my discovery is a potential investor will literally tell me what and why would compel him to invest in our deal when I'm ready to ultimately close them. And so, imagine now I'm in my 4th call, I'm in my 5th call, I've sent him everything, he's looked at everything, I've answered questions, and I'm now trying to close them as a new investor. What I might say is something like, Robert, can you see how an investment with us today is going to help you accomplish the goal that you had established when we first met, which was to see your money grow so that you can put your 2 kids through college in the next 5 to 7 years? Does this logically make sense? Now they can see it, because what I've done is I've tied the features of the investment to something that they need, which is their money needs to grow to put the kids through school. Or I might tell a story where I say, let me show you how an investment that was made by a father a few years ago has allowed his kids to go on to Ivy League. So it's always becoming a great storyteller. I mean, Grant's phenomenal at storytelling. Jordan Belfort, I spent time with them. Again, great storyteller. It's really just understanding the human element, and also the fact that people invest with people they know, like, and trust. Well, how do we do this? We become really, really transparent and a good storyteller to pull people in so that that potential investor can put themselves in this other person's shoes and say, well, geez, if it worked for this guy and it worked for this guy, more than likely it will work for me as well. And so that's, I think, what has allowed me to just really raise large amounts of capital. It's just, communicating with people, building rapport, understanding it's a process, and it is a system-based process that can be taught and delivered to other people. But it's really just understanding that, at the end of the day, we don't want to talk about the features. We want to move over here and talk about the benefits. This is what this investment will do for you.
That's a fantastic example, and I'm sure that's a lot of what they teach, what you teach in your school, in your coaching program. I mean, that's amazing. I have not heard it explained to me quite like that, but it's true. You said 2 main points: slow it down. Right? You can't just go and ask for it. Hey, let's go on a date and let's get married. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to warm them up a little bit. You're going to have a couple of 3 phone calls. Then you want to find out what is it that they want, and then reaffirm to them what they want, and use it in an example that they can easily relate to. You said, make it human. Yeah. Understand that, money is emotional, right? You want to mess with somebody's emotions, mess with their money.
Exactly.
You'll find out if you cut distributions, you're going to find out people get upset. As long as you keep the money flow, they get satisfied. And I think Grant's really interesting in this, right? Because look, nobody is consistent. Grant buys deals and immediately they start cash flowing. You're an apartment owner, real estate owner like I am. That's not realistic. But what he's done is he's made sure that no matter what happens, I'm going to make sure that distribution comes out every single month, because when the money comes, you feel comfortable. Is when it dries up, the faucet turns off, and you get scared, and that's when you start asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so let's get into some of your podcasts. Beast Nation. Tell everybody about where they can find you and what you talk about on Beast Nation.
So we have 2 podcasts. One of the older podcasts, Beast Nation, which was much more on, mindset, the habits of success. Interviewed some absolutely phenomenal rock stars there, people like Brandon Dawson. We've interviewed Bobby Castro, Beyonce's father, Matthew Knowles, a guy that literally summited Mount Everest with 2 artificial knees. First human to ever do that. And so Beast Nation really is just largely about, activating that inner drive, creating the habits of success. I think one of the big challenges is so many people, like when they look at themselves introvertly, right? We look into ourselves introvertly, we realize we're capable of so much more, but we're not activating that. We're not delivering so much more. We're kind of falling back to our creature comforts. We're kind of acquiescing. And so the question with Beast Nation is, what makes people hungry? Like, some people basically realize the clock goes to 0 at midnight, and I wake up every day with an activated prey drive. That's a term that my good friend Michael Burton uses. But it's basically, we go to bed tired, we wake up hungry. And unfortunately, so many people are not hungry. And so Beast Nation as a podcast was really teaching people that the life we live is really a direct reflection of our underlying habits. And so if we adopt shitty habits, right, we're not living life on the offensive, and we're not pursuing business, or we're not initiating follow-up, we're on the defensive, and largely now we're just basically taking whatever life throws our way. And, so many people out there that are trying to figure out, like, well, how do I, pattern my life for success? Or how do I go from here to where I want to be? It's largely understanding some of the principles that we talk about on Beast Nation. The other podcast, which I just love, is the one that's behind me on the wall, the Capital Catalyst Show. And on that podcast, we interview people that are successful capital raisers. There is a prerequisite to be interviewed on that. You have to have successfully raised capital. You have to be in the game. And so it's kind of like, professional sports. Are you sitting on the sidelines as an observer, or are you actually on the field or on the court playing the game? And so on the Capital Catalyst Show, we talk about raising capital. How have you done it? Tell us about your story. Are you using social media? And so it really gets into the nitty gritty as a show to teach people, but more importantly, show them that they can do this too if they just get across the line and get started. I think so many people are hung up on, the minutia, the limiting beliefs or the fear. I don't know what you want to call it, but like they see everybody else building, fortunes and, raising tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. And maybe they don't feel entitled, or maybe they don't feel that they can do it. What I'm here to tell people is anybody can raise capital. I mean, literally, I share a story about when I was in the oil business. I wanted to hire a salesperson to my team. Now, I want you to imagine this in your mind, Robert. I'm in a huge office building in downtown Austin, right off of Congress Avenue. Everybody in that building, for the most part, is suit and tie, or at least business attire. We got firms in there like Prudential-based securities, big accounting offices. We had the whole third floor. And some kid shows up for an interview wearing a pair of jeans that had holes in the knees, a flannel shirt, a Fu Manchu mustache, a mullet for a haircut like Billy Ray Cyrus. I mean, literally, the guy looked like Joe Dirt, the character that David Spade played in the movie Joe Dirt. And for most people, the interview would have ended right there at the doorway, but not for him. I invited him in. I got him a cup of coffee. We sat down. I got to know him. And when I asked him why he wanted to come to work for me, his answer is what opened the door to the opportunity of a lifetime. So I said, Jack, why do you want to come to work here? He said, as you can see, I'm a real simple, humble guy. And he apologized for showing up dressed like that. But he said, my wife and my daughter, Mr. Blazar, have real big dreams and real big goals in life. And I just want to give them everything in life that they desire. And I'm just like, wow, like this guy will pretty much crawl through the wall, break down the barriers to do what I tell him to do, because he wants to give his wife and his daughter the things in life that they desire. So I said, I'm going to take a big chance. Come back on Monday, we'll put you to work. So he shows up. You think he would have dressed better? I don't even think the guy owned a suit. Showed up dressed exactly the same way. And now I, as the boss, am going, shit, maybe I made a mistake on this guy. How in the world is this dude, it looks like Joe Dirt, going to get on a phone and convince people to send him hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars? And he's like, I'm ready to do something. And I'm just like, man, I might have made a mistake. I was like, but finally I said, follow me. So we got downstairs in the garage. We got him a Porsche. I took him to a department store, Robert, and literally I treated him that day to 2 suits, dressed him from head to toe. Then I took him to my barber. We gave him a Hollywood makeover. Then the next day when he came in, man, he felt good about himself. He had some swag. And then I gave him the script and I gave him the coaching. And in that year, Joe Dirt raised $25 million for me and earned $250,000 in commission. And so I tell people, if I can teach Joe Dirt and the thousands of other people around the world how to attract and raise millions and millions of dollars, might that not be something you have an interest in learning how to do as well? But I tell people it's systems-based. It's concept-based. It's understanding, much like we've talked about here. You don't rush the process. You follow up. You have quality marketing materials. And if you do these things and follow the steps, you too can also be successful in raising capital. Now, granted, some people might only raise a few $1 million. Other people might go on to raise, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, because they're doing it at scale where they bring together a team of people that now can help them do it at a much larger amount.
It's fantastic stories. Those are just fantastic. I want to get back to the podcast. Like, I truly believe that you can't raise money if people don't know who you are.
Correct.
You gotta know who you are.
Yeah.
So when did you start those podcasts? What year was it?
So Beast Nation, it's really interesting. This is funny. We started Beast Nation literally right before COVID. And we were actually rated on Yahoo News and Yahoo Finance as the number one, it was the number 2 podcast to help people navigate and get through COVID. And so when that press release came out in Yahoo, that we were the 2nd rated show, I mean, it just went ballistic. I mean, it really took off. The other one, which is Capital Catalyst Show, we started that late last year in like October, November. And that really was to align a podcast much more with obviously a capital school platform or education platform, as well as what I'm doing, raising capital for deals like you do as well. And that show's really taken off. But I agree. See, I believe as a capital raiser, if you can become, like Coach Burt says, a person of interest, where people see you on a show, where they hear you on the radio, where you speak on stage, they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, Robert, I heard you on Brad Blazar's podcast talking about your deal. Like, I want to learn more. See, you go from the chaser pursuing an investor to the person that's being chased. Now they're calling you. Isn't that a lot easier when people are calling you, Robert, to raise capital? It's like you don't even have to sell them, right? They've already made up their mind. They want to invest with you. And so I use basically a system where I don't admit them right away. I kind of hold them off. I kind of downsell them. Oh, hold on, buddy, here. You know, it's great that you heard me, but let's get to know each other. I want to make sure that we date for a while before I ask you to get out your checkbook. So we still use the same process, but I like to turn the tables. I like it a lot more when people call me with an open checkbook where they've heard me on a show and they want to know about our fund or about our next deal, because that puts me in the driver's seat. Man, it makes it so much easier to raise capital. But I agree, it's the podcast, it's the books. As you know, I speak on a lot of stages, was just on a stage in Toronto in front of about 3,000 people up there. So we got a lot of potential investors that want to invest in our fund or talk to us about becoming a co-GP and getting on our capital team.
Yeah, I agree. It's you got to be known, and you're not going to be known sitting on your couch. You got to be known because you're in front of what? The phone. No one's watching TV. They're in here.
Exactly.
And so, part of the Cardo universe is Pete Vargas, and I actually signed up for that. And when I learned the term OPS, other people's stages, and you mentioned that you a minute ago, that you have to borrow their platform. You have to get other people. It's what the celebrities or the music artists collaborate. You see, a country star get into like a rap side, so they can kind of get into each other's fan base. And it's the same thing here. And then when you get there, you got to meet people. I've been on Brad Lee's podcast, and that's been fantastic. I remember getting leads left and right from that. Hey, and you could have been on it 3 or 4 years ago, and somebody just discovered Brad Lee, and they're going through Brad Lee's old podcast, and they see something in the title about you, and then there you go, you find each other. Or I was actually at a Brad Lee event a couple of weeks ago about social media and how to get your brand out. Because you guys are constantly fine tuning yourself, and I met a couple of guys there that are apartment guys out of Philadelphia. And they heard me talking, and next thing you know, we're creating a friendship, and now they want to come to my next event in September. That's going to be probably a $7,000 ticket between the two of them, right? And that paid for me going to Brad's, because I met that one guy. The next thing you know, we become friends. Maybe he'll be a future student. But it's about getting known, being out there, and then telling your story.
Right. I totally agree, 100%. It's not just that. It's also building those relationships with other people that are at that same level, right? Who can Bradley now connect you with that he knows, right? Or who can a Coach Burt connect you with that is in his network? And what a lot of people don't realize is, when I try to justify why people sometimes pay me $25,000, $50,000 for me to consult with them or to, quote, be their coach, I say, because you're not just getting me. You got to realize you're getting me and everybody in my Rolodex. And so if there is an opportunity for me to make a strategic connection that can dramatically change your business and your future, might that not be worth $25,000 or $50,000? And then they look at that very differently because they realize my Rolodex is like huge. I mean, it's like, hey, you want me to introduce you to Kevin Arrington? Hey, Kevin, Brad here. I got somebody that I want to introduce you to. You want me to introduce you to Beyonce's dad, Matt Knowles, or my good buddy, 2-time Grammy Award-winning artist if you're in the music space? So what people get access to, not only through a coach, but also through the masterminds that many of us are part of, is that neural network. You're only one connection away from dramatically transforming and changing your life. And I think a lot of people overlook that. They don't get that because they're so myopic and they got blinders on, and they're just, so focused on the day-to-day, where our job is to expand their mind and get them to realize, no, you got to associate with winners. It's kind of like we all know, you're the average of the 5 to 7 people you're spending most of your time with. You want to get to a higher level, start hanging out with the movers and shakers, start going to these events, start building those friendships, start getting on these podcasts, because the podcast is what initiates that relationship. Now you know them, and guess what? They also know you.
That's 1,000%. That's where my relationship with Grant started, because he continued to see me show up again and again at different one of his events, you know. And obviously, look, I'm putting money in his pocket, but he also knows that you're trying to learn. So he does, you know. I had my very first mastermind, and he shows up to my mastermind in 2001, because, you know, up to 2021, because he was here to watch the Astros during the World Series, and he gave me a call and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a limo service. Who do you use? What do you got going on?" "No, I'm actually doing a mastermind right now." "Oh, really? Oh, well, is it going to be there tomorrow?" "Okay, well, don't tell anybody. I'll try to stop by." And he shows up, right? Because that was just his way of give back, you know. And of course, he smells real estate. He wants to show up, right? And that was the coolest event, and lended credibility when someone like you said, "Hey, let me introduce you to my friend Robert," or "Let me introduce you to this." So yeah, you got to get known. You got to go to these events.
Absolutely.
Brad, I want to ask you real quick. So, hey, times are changing. Lots of economic news, plus or minus, depends on which side of the fence are on. What do you see are the biggest opportunities for investors to take advantage of this moment?
You know, it's funny. We got so many people that are up in Canada, believe it or not. If you're following the news up there, I mean, capital gains going to 66%. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, why in the hell would you want to invest and be a Canadian? But here's what I'll tell you. You know, I've lived through so many recessions. I've seen real estate cycles go up. I've seen them go down. You know, seeing interest rates obviously much higher than where they are today. And so many people get focused and caught up on the minutia. And what we have to realize is that any industry, I don't care if it's real estate, I don't care if it's a stock market, I don't care if it's private equity, every industry and every economy in the world is cyclical. Right? You cannot time it. Yes, there will always be good deals. There will always be bad deals. Right now, it's obviously a little bit more challenging and harder to underwrite because interest rates have ticked up over the last 24 months. But does that mean that deals out there today are not attractive? No. It just means that you might have to go through more deals and underwrite a few more properties and stress test to find those that obviously rise to the top. But here's the one thing that I will tell you with absolute 100% certainty. If you get in the game now and you invest your time, your energy, and maybe even your money into real estate, in 4 to 6 years, man, you're going to be so fucking thankful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think
will be made in the next 4 to 6 years by people that get in the game. And so it gets back to what I said earlier, Robert. You know, you can sit on the sidelines and be a spectator, or you can actually get out on the field and play that game. You know, what I would encourage people to do, man, is double down and play that game, because the people that are going to be playing that game are going to be handsomely rewarded, and they're going to be looking back in 5 to 7 years going, man, thank God I invested in real estate. Here I am now, retired, sitting on millions of dollars, or I got all the passive income I need now. I got the ability to kiss my boss off and say, hey, man, I no longer need to be exchanging my time for money because I listened to Brad, I listened to Robert, I started investing maybe passively, as a limited partner, then maybe just going out and building a couple small rental properties, maybe single family, and then graduating up like we all did. But man, I'm telling people, man, you got to get in the game, because if you do that now, I guarantee you're going to be so handsomely rewarded in the next 4 to 6 years that you're going to love me for it.
1,000%. I apologize for interrupting you earlier. I thought you were pausing. In all of my PPMs, I put in there that this is going to be roughly a 7 to 10 year ownership horizon. And the reason for that is that you do not lose money in real estate in a 10-year cycle. You may take it on the chin somewhere along the way, maybe even in the beginning, like what's happened on a couple of recent deals, but just hold out. Get it, hold on. What goes down comes up. What goes up comes down. It's just the law, one of the eternal laws of life. So you're 1,000% right on that. You've got to get in the game. Make sure that you have your reserves built up and you can move forward and take advantage of these sick deals. Because again, you probably read the same data that I have. In real estate, construction has come to a stop. And in Houston, Texas, this is the lowest construction pipeline that we've had since 2013. Now, before this, it was heavy, and that's why you saw little rent growth. There's nothing coming on in 25 and 26. So rents are going to pop.
Yep.
So that's a
Yeah.
way of taking advantage of
One
the
of the,
inflation, the construction costs. You own, rents are going to pop, and you're going to make that money back that you lost in those earlier years where it got a little lean.
Yeah, one of the big numbers that we look at, because we have access, I'm sure, like you guys do, to CoStar and other, industry analytics, is we look at the absorption rate. Like, I'll look at a developer that opens the doors to, 250, 300 unit property, new development, and I'll look at the absorption rate, meaning how long does it take this person to get occupancy up to, a certain number? Maybe it's 80%, maybe it's even higher. And so when I look at the absorption rate, what that tells me is, okay, fewer people might be moving to Texas now. Why? Because it's taking longer for these bigger properties to get up to occupancy. Or, maybe there's something else here. Maybe there's another property that this is competing with. And so we look at absorption rate as a number to basically then analyze what's happening within the industry. But here's what I will tell you, and God forbid, this, Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, and a few other selective markets that are the landlord-friendly states will continue to do well. And what was so funny is when the rest of the nation was in a major economic recession, Texas kind of had its back. Yep. The rest of the nation, we didn't really see a recession here. I mean, people were still moving here. We had an influx of people coming from the north. We have a ton of people coming from California. Like, they're flipping the bird to California. Like, I can't wait to get out of California. People do it. They come down here. They're like, holy crap. I got 3 times the house. I got no state income tax. Or, if they're moving into an apartment, they get into a Class A now that has all the amenities, and they are probably paying as much, if not more, back home. And so we that are here in Texas, as well as those that are in Florida and some other selected markets, really, I think, have this tremendous opportunity. But it really gets back to, looking at the cyclical nature. Yes, 7 to 10 years in commercial real estate, 9 out of 10 times you will come out a winner, because like you said, it'll always come back. And, the great thing about real estate is if you're going to tell your investors that it is a longer hold, if the property values go up, do a cash out refinance. Mm-hmm. Give investors a good chunk of the change back. It's tax-free to them. Now they don't really care how long you own it. It's like, well, shit, Robert sent me 80% of my money back on that cash out 3 years ago. Robert, man, let's milk the gravy train here, right?
1,000%. So, Brent, we're getting close to the end of our time allotment, but I don't want to end without asking you a couple final questions.
Sure.
Specifically, technology. Now, I recently figured out ChatGPT and how to start using that. And I remember I went to a Gary V 4D class. I think it was in 2016, 2017. And one of the things he said you needed when you're starting is you got to have a copy person. And I'm amazed at ChatGPT, how you can use it to raise funds. And I'm going in there and I'm writing a quick little email. It's like, okay, ChatGPT, talking to it like it's Brad, ChatGPT. Hey, this is my email to my investors. Please give it more of a sales spin, make it more optimistic, but also create a FOMO atmosphere. Right. And it just spits it out. And you're like, holy shit, like, this is amazing. That just saved me $80,000 to $100,000 a person, right? To bring that in. But now I still got to write something, but man, it just rewords it, prints it. So have you had it? So I know that's important for capital raising. Have you had a chance to use that, or what other technologies are you using to help you with capital raising?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. You can really save so much time. And believe it or not, I've actually talked to a couple people that are writing books now with ChatGPT, where they'll type some stuff in, ChatGPT will edit it, give a whole paragraph. They'll cut and paste it. It really saves a lot of time. So definitely ChatGPT. The second thing is we have created for our whole community, we'd love to have conversations with anybody that's interested, pretty much an all-in-one capital raising solution that we call Capital Stack. The problem is so many people out there have all these different apps. You might have MailChimp, and then you might have Typeform, and then you might have Zapier, so that your apps can interface with each other. And then you have an onboarding platform, maybe like Cashflow Portal or Syndication Pro. And so, your monthly expenses to pay out on all these different platforms can be fairly expensive. And so, we went to our team, we looked at Go High Level, and we said, hey, here's a platform that's kind of all inclusive, where with one platform, you can do all of these things. You can create a funnel, you can create the email nurturing, you can send out text messages. And so I have a team of engineers take that and put it on steroids so that it is now used specifically for, quote, capital raising. But I agree, you definitely need to have systems and structure to your process. Because another big thing that I see people suffer with that are raising capital is they'll be talking to a lot of people, but they're not following up because they don't have a CRM or a system to create those reminder tasks. And so, you wake up in 3 weeks and you're like, oh man, I had that great conversation with Robert Martinez, and you call Robert back and it's 3 weeks since you last talked to him. He's like, man, I didn't hear from you. Like, I've already invested in somebody else's deal or whatever. They lose interest. So a good structured system will allow you to put those reminder tasks on your calendar so that you're moving people forward through a process. I mean, I love Graham. He has a saying, money follows motion. When I was with Jordan Belfort in the green room up in Toronto, he said, for a good salesperson, it's like every time you get on a call, you need to know exactly what you want the outcome of that call to be. Am I moving that prospect to a webinar? Am I moving that person to a live event? Am I moving that process to over here? And so every time I get on a Zoom or a call, it's like, I know what I want the outcome of that to be. Jordan Belfort is the same way. He's got the straight line method, right? So I think that brings structure to your capital raising business, Robert, and it's what allows us to scale. So, our capital stack is kind of modeled after Go High Level. And then the other thing really that also we love is doing live events. We do a shitload of live events. Now we can do them with Zoom, but there's a platform that we now have moved our webinars to called Demio, spelled Demio. We love Demio. So much better for hosting webinars. The replay is great. It's branded. It looks beautiful. It puts your bio in there. When people get that replay link, it looks really great and sexy. So check out Demio, everybody, if you're doing webinars to preview your deals and you're using webinars to get in front of a potential investor community. It's now our platform of choice. And we've actually had some really, really great results. But it's all about technology. It's not working harder, it's working smarter.
That's amazing. Brett, thank you so much for that last bit of value. I told everybody at the beginning that you were going to bring so much value, and you just ended fucking strong by bringing a really good tip, which I don't think we're using either. And if not, I think Natalie's off screen looking at this right now. And I said I'd bring value. So I've got to add one more for everybody else, and I hopefully maybe this will return the favor that on your selfless offer. So we started using AI notes to help us with all of our staff meetings. So Natalie will record all of our meetings, all of our Zoom calls, and she'll transfer it into AI spits out as if AI was there with you taking minutes. And it says specifically what was said, when and where, what assignments were handed out. Then you can use it to create an article for LinkedIn, which remember we talked about that. You got to get known. So this podcast is going to go up as an audio. The podcast is going to go up edited as a YouTube video with the key points highlighted. And then, of course, we're going to put it up on LinkedIn. I used it yesterday. There was a meeting that I couldn't attend. I said, make sure you record it, push it through the AI notes, and let me see what was said. Because I need to agree, right? It's my ass on the line. I need to make sure that I need to know what everybody's working on. So if you're not already doing that, I think that would be amazing. Now I can share with you that program. But it is like, wow. I was showing it to my two boys. And again, these are like, they're teenagers, right? 18 and 16. They know it all. And they're like, that is amazing. I can use that for school. I'm like, you're exactly right. You can use this AI, just let it record and then go have lunch. And when you come back, it's done processing and you got all the teacher's notes ready to go because this is genius. And so you're right. Technology is something else. Brett, I want to thank you for today, man. It has been great to catch up with you. I definitely want to come visit with you in Tennessee and Coach Burt and learn more about your prey drive, learn more about your mindset on how you go in ready to kill on how you're going to raise your capital. Thank you for joining us today. How can people follow you? How do they get a hold of you or your team to get involved in your circle of influence?
So, I'm all over social media, Robert. Like you said earlier, man, you got to become a person of interest. You got to be omnipresent. So if you just Google my name, I will definitely pop up on your search. But the easiest way is just to, go to my website. We got a website where you can look about my books. You can follow the podcast. You can learn about our platform. It's just my first and last name, www.bradblazar.com. Just make sure you don't put any E's in there. There's no E's in my last name. It's two A's, Blazar.com. Or better yet, just follow me on Instagram. I'm the guy with that little blue check up there by my name, and just shoot me a DM. Let's connect on Instagram, and then let's take that conversation maybe offline to something more personal. But I would love to connect with any of the people that listen to the show that want some more information, just want to learn how they can get started. If they want to launch a fund, again, we do that as well. We're here really just to empower people and to transform people's lives, because I believe truly in my heart that most people in the world have a desire to be doing more in life. They want to do something big. And a lot of times that something big is not because of the fear. It's because they just don't have two damn nickels to rub together to get that big project or that big idea off the ground. Like, I've talked to hundreds of people that want to open restaurants. Why have you not started? Don't have the money. I got people that want to buy businesses. Again, why haven't you started? Again, don't have the money. And it really is disheartening, because you and I, both capital raisers, Robert, know, like, every day when we get out of bed, we're surrounded by all the money we need to pretty much do anything in life we want, desire. We just call these other people investors. And so that's really the reason I launched the platform. It was to empower people, because I knew if I could teach others how to attract and raise capital, we can now help so many millions of people's dreams become a reality. And when we get these testimonials and we get these texts and we get these emails about people that are now moving forward because they now understand that they don't need to go to the bank, or if they have crappy credit, they can go over here, because investors really don't care about those things. They care about your ability to execute. That's why we do what we do and why we show up each and every day. So just bradblazar.com, or shoot me a DM on Instagram, and we'd love to have a conversation with anybody here that wants to learn more.
And Brad, you just dropped so much value today. I'm overly impressed. I raised 184 million in 15 years. And if I had had you as a coach 15 years ago, I probably would be over $1 billion easily. So gang, there's no excuses now. You met the guy, the man, the myth, the legend. He's raised $2 billion. He's showing you, we gave you some really good value here and some good tips on how to slow it down and raise your equity, raise your capital with your network and get into other people's stages. All the gems are here, gang. Find bradblazar.com. Don't put an E in there. You ain't going to find him. All right. We'll catch you next time, Brad, and I'll see you in Tennessee, hopefully in August.